Los, ser- los servicios de interpretación van a estar disponibles para esta junta. La manera en la que ustedes pueden tener acceso a los servicios, si se pueden fijar en su pantalla, en la parte inferior, en medio, ustedes van a ver un símbolo de mundo. Si pueden hacer un clic o chasqueo en ese símbolo y después les va a dar la opción de inglés o español, entonces si pueden hacer otro clic en el idioma de español y ustedes pueden escuchar la junta de una manera simultánea. Estamos a su servicio. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Gracias, Claudia. Let's give families a minute to get over to the interpretation channel if they need it, and then we'll start. Thank you, Megan. So good evening again, River families. Thank you for joining us tonight. I know that I wanted to acknowledge that there's been a lot of uncertainty for River families and sort of what's happening next year and what your options are. So last night we shared an overview for all families with some specific information for what the options are as we enter open enrollment season. And tonight you will hear specifically around what has been designed over the last few months around Unidos Middle School. So we are excited and eager to share with you the design work that's been done and to give you some insight into that program. And with that, I'm going to pass to Monica Reddy, who is the Director of Secondary Curriculum Instruction and English Learner Services, and she will kick off the presentation this evening.
Good evening, River families. We're excited to be here tonight. I have the privilege of introducing the future principal of Unidos Middle School, Principal Uribe, and she's going to start off by sharing around the name. So Megan, if you could turn to the next slide, please.
All right, good evening, River families. I'm excited to share this virtual space with you tonight as we share the developments of our Language and Cultural Arts Integration Academy. As you know, I'm the current principal at NVLA, and we're developing the program during this school year. And I think something really important to share is that, our intention is to build a school with our school community. And you'll see that in future slides, how there will be opportunities for our students and our parents' voice to come through as we continue to develop the school. I also want to share with you that you have my commitment to make our school inclusive and celebratory and honoring of all of our students and families, and of course, languages and cultures. This school, is so exciting to develop, because in this school, we're all going to be language learners, right? We're all going to be learning, English and Spanish, and we're all going to be at different levels, and that's just fantastic. There's definitely just excitement around that. It's a great opportunity for all of our students. Which brings me to the name. I think, the name of our school, Unidos Middle School, is very appropriate, right? As we're all coming together as one big family to do middle school years together, again, as we honor and celebrate each other. And you may be wondering, where does the name come from? And it actually came from a student here at MVLA who suggested the name. He was aware of just, the different changes that our community was going through. And he just felt like the name would capture this school that would receive students from different schools, as we settle down with the changes. So we do have a short video where he's talking about the meaning behind the name and why he felt like this name would be appropriate. So Megan, if you can play that video for us, that'd be great. And the audio isn't working.
Hello, my name is Efrain Velasquez. I am
excited
to share the name for the new middle school. Are you ready? Unidos Middle School, or UMS. Unidos was my original idea because several schools were closing and since Unidos means coming together, I thought it would be a good name. It would be a good name, no matter our backgrounds and color of our skin. Thank you.
All right, so there you have it. Our Efrain Velasquez, idea came from him, and I think again it just captures just the beautiful changes that are taking place, and just having a beautiful place for all of our families to come together, united and unidos during the middle school years. So if you can advance to the next slide, Megan, please. So tied together is our mission and vision. And the mission and vision was something that we developed over the summer. We did start this work, I believe at the end of July, beginning of August, with just different stakeholders, parents and students from various schools across our district. So our mission, and you can see how it just ties in very well with our name, Unidos. The mission is to provide a global education that instills a love for learning and honors languages and cultures. And our vision is that all of our students are empowered to achieve academic excellence while growing bilingualism, biliteracy, and interpersonal connections in a community that is responsive to the well-being of all learners, right? That right there speaks to being united, coming together. It speaks to being unidos. In the next few slides, we're gonna get more into the program and what we're going to offer, right? As we continue to anchor our program back to our name, back to our mission and vision. But I'm going to toss it to Director Reddy, who's going to talk to us a little bit more of just the overall picture of middle school before we get into, what does that look like specifically for our students at Unidos. So Director Reddy.
Thank you. Next slide, please, Megan. So as you hear tonight specifically about Unidos, it's also a part of our larger Napa Valley Unified School District community. And after coming together in the spring and considering what we heard from our community around the needs that our middle school students and families and staff have, we've been working collaboratively as a middle school design team with students, staff, parents, and administrators at each of the sites to develop what is the experience that students need and should have as they're going through all of our MVUSD middle schools. And that includes Unidos. And so before going into the specifics, there are a couple key elements that you'll see reflected in Unidos as well as the other schools. The first one is all students will have time built into the schedule that's focused on building community, social emotional development, and connections to adults and peers. This time for middle school students is so important to them as they're growing in their development, both academically and socially and emotionally, that there are spaces where they feel like they have belonging, where they can connect to adults, where they can connect to each other, and that's within the school day. So with that, all students will have integrated and designated social emotional learning. We do already have some of those strategies and curriculums in place, but we're looking at that across the middle schools of how can we provide that experience within classes and within this flexible learning time so that students are learning how to self-manage, how to be self-aware, how to make good decisions, how to stay organized, all those pieces around how you develop those skills that are important both in high school and beyond. All students will have equitable access to programming, and tonight you're going to hear what that's going to look like for students at Unidos. All sites will facilitate opportunities for small learning communities. Unidos will still remain a small learning community. The max size of the campus physically is about 600 students. And so within that community of 600 or less, how are we providing that safe, inclusive, and responsive learning environment over the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades as your student or your as a family are engaging in that environment together with staff and with Principal Uribe. And then all sites will benefit from professional learning around equitable and effective grading practices. And so this came through from the community in these meetings, in particular our students around feedback and grading practices. And so those core elements will be reflected in Unidos as well as all the other middle schools. And I will hand it back to Principal Uribe to talk more specifically about some of the programmatic elements of Unidos.
All right, thank you, Director Reddy. So yes, so as you can see on the screen, we have three main core elements to our program. The first one is the middle school core elements, which Director Reddy was just talking about. You know, we are part of the school district, and we will make sure that those core elements are also infused and become part of our program. The last two pieces that you see on the screen are the ones that, you know, set us apart as, you know, a language and cultural integration academy, right? The language academy, we will have two different pathways, because we'll have students from both Pueblo Vista and Napa Valley Language Academy who have been on the dual immersion track, who will continue on their K-12 dual language pathway. So that will continue for them. But then also we are going to have a beautiful opportunity to provide Spanish language arts for students who are new to the language. So this would be a perfect opportunity for like a river student to start learning Spanish. And we'll talk at the next slide as to what those classes will look like. So essentially, we will have two different pathways for this language academy. What's going to bring us all together is that last component that you see on the screen, the cultural arts integration. I believe this is going to be such a beautiful way to really, you know, integrate all of our students, as you know, the arts integration will be a way to teach both content. For example, if we take a social studies unit and we infuse some cultural arts into the units, and allowing students to construct and demonstrate their understanding through art form, you know, it allows for students to express their creativity, and it also allows them to connect to art form, and then also learn the content area alongside the art standards. So we're really excited about developing these beautiful units, again, that are standards-based, connected to a content area, and then infusing the cultural arts integration piece. You know, there's opportunities to explore cultures and languages beyond our school, right? And I think we want to definitely take that opportunity to expand that. Next slide, please. And here in this slide, you can see how, I have to make this a little bigger for my eyes. As you can see, we have, this slide talks about the two different pathways, right? And you're probably wondering, well, why are there three columns? The reason there's three columns is because the lighter blue, the dual immersion, that is, you know, again, the student that's feeding in from Pueblo Vista and BLA. And then the darker blue, we see as potentially receiving two different types of students who are new to the language, to the instruction of Spanish. It could be like a new language learner that's completely new to Spanish, such as a river student, who would have the core elements that Dr. Reddy, Director Reddy was talking about: English language arts, math, social studies in English, science in English, and then we would offer a Spanish class, right? Our goal is to, you know, provide that opportunity for a student who starts to learn Spanish in the 6th grade to potentially have them earn their CLA by literacy by the time they're in high school. So we're being very intentional and very research-based as we are developing this program, because it's a great opportunity for our students to earn that CLA by literacy by the time they're in high school, right? And we'll do our part to get them there. And, you know, I think it's important for students to know that by them earning the CLA by literacy by the time they're in high school, it's going to open up a lot of doors once, you know, during the school years, yes, but they're definitely going to see it once they start going to college and, you know, going out to the workforce. And, you know, people that are going to be that are bilingual are probably going to have more opportunities for those jobs, right, than students who just speak one language. And then the last column that you see there, the heritage speaker, basically what that is a student who speaks Spanish at home, but hasn't had formal instruction in Spanish, right? So you can see that we are providing the same elements for English, language arts and math, social studies in English, science in English, but then that student would take Spanish for Spanish speakers because they have more background in Spanish. They just possibly haven't had the formal instruction in the language. There will be opportunities also for early and late flight. And that's something that we will develop and then share with you the options for those classes. So next we're going to talk about flex time. So I'm going to toss it back to Director Reddy, who's going to tell us more about that.
Thank you. I think that many of you are familiar with the advisory that currently exists at your middle school, or if you're new and exploring, this is also can be known as flex time, and you may hear it called many different things: crew, advisory, response to intervention. But it's a time where students have the opportunity to come together and really build that smaller learning community, build that place and space where they can find belonging, build a connection to an adult. And that happens in many different ways. It can happen through community building activities. It can happen through developing their own social and emotional, through developing it through their own social and emotional learning, building their own self-awareness, their self-management, their decision-making as they're participating in activities with their group. Time for reteach and extensive, being responsive to their academic needs. It's extra support for students who are learning 1 to 2 languages, and then also time for students who have individual education plans to receive that more directed support that they may need. And so we use the term flex time because it's flexible. To be responsive to students is one of the key needs that you have as our students change over their 6th through 8th grade career. So that will be embedded into the day, and the design around that is really being built across the middle schools in conjunction with our families and our students and our staff so that we're responsive to our student needs. And then it's also a space where when situations happen or there's school-wide events that need to occur, that time and space can be used to engage with the community through those various activities and come together through those situations. So that is the idea behind flex time. It's typically not a graded period, but it is time built within the school day for all students.
Thank you. So next slide, please. All right. So student voice is very important to me. There's always different opportunities that I like to create for our students to be involved in the creation of school, right? We don't want to make decisions that are going to impact students without getting their perspective and their voices. So as we're building our school, it's really important to me to bring in our students as we make some decisions about our programs, right, during the school year. So in February during this school year, so February 2022, we're gonna start generating interest for the creation of our student council. So as you know, we have our name, we have our mission and vision, but we also have some key elements of our program that we haven't developed, such as our school motto, our mascot, our school colors, and starting a list and interest of clubs that we may offer at school. So I will be sending out interest forms to our students who will be joining from NVLA, Pueblo Vista Harvest, and of course River to help generate student council for Unidos. And I want it to be a good representation of all sites. And once we have our student council, come together, we will, with student council, create additional opportunities for the rest of our student body to elevate their voices in their process as we are generating our school motto, mascot, school colors, clubs, and then possibly other things that might come up as needs that have been identified by our student council. So I'm excited about that. Look for information on that starting in February of 2022. And again, it's because we can't wait till August, right, to start this work. We need to start it soon. Okay, next slide. And it's the same for our parents. It's great to have parents on campus, due to COVID, as you're all experiencing during the school year, our doors are open for our students, and we can't always have the same opportunities as we have had in the past for our parents to come and be part of our school, right? A lot of it's done through Zoom, and I'm grateful for that, but it's always, I miss that face-to-face contact. But having said that, we're also going to build opportunities for our parents to also, get their voice in as we're creating our school. And for our parents, we're starting the process for site council and ELAC in January, maybe end of January, beginning of February. There's, certain documents that we have to start to work on for Unidos, such as the single plan for student achievement, right? That's that document that talks about our goals for our school and how the funding is tied to our goals. So that'll be something that we generate and co-create with our parents, and then also our staff. So again, be on the lookout for information around that. So student council, ELAC, and then our Unidos Parent Club, we want to start that sometime in the spring. And then hopefully we can see, the end of COVID, so we can then start our grade level and school-wide events. So we'll start that, once we're able to bring our parents on campus. But the first step is we'll start by creating our site council, our ELAC, and our parent teacher club. So with that, I'm going to toss to Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings, who's going to talk to us about transportation and after-school sports. And I want to just acknowledge that, the transportation piece might not be relevant to our river families, but I think it's important to know, to keep you in the loop of, part of our school community who will need this support in coming to school, as their neighborhood school has closed and there's a need for transportation. So we're sharing this to keep you in the loop with that piece.
Thank you, Principal Uribe. I know when you said 2022, I was like, wow, we are so well into the 21st century now. We are 20 years past. So that just struck me as, I keep forgetting, time is moving very quickly. So I know that in talking to school current river staff, that parents have had a lot of questions regarding transportation and after school, not just sports, but after school activities. And so we are currently, as part of the process of notifying families impacted by school closure or consolidation, doing what we call evaluations in progress around the transportation needs. So what that means is that we are surveying families to determine what the needs are for transportation. And then based on that, we will be able to determine routes and plan for transportation by those families impacted by school closure and consolidation. As Principal Uribe mentioned, it may not necessarily impact river families, but we wanted to keep you guys in the loop around that. And then in terms of after school programs, all of our comprehensive middle schools and including, and actually I just should say middle schools, will have ACE after school sports, after school childcare available. And then also as part of our redesign process, we are wanting to add some more enrichment activities after school to our middle schools, because we know that sometimes students are more engaged in things that happen, that they have a high interest in, and just sort of maybe a natural curiosity for. And we want to provide those opportunities after school for students who want to maybe go a little deeper into a particular area or some area of interest. So there will be some enrichment activities after school for families, not just at Unidos, but at all of our middle schools as well. And with that, the next slide, please. Open enrollment process. So as many of you probably are aware, our open enrollment process starts November 1st and goes till November 30th. And you should have received a communication either last week or the week before informing you that if you're a current River 6th grader or 7th grader, that you would be automatically promoted to the next grade at Unidos, that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do open enrollment. You automatically have a spot at the new Unidos Middle School. If you want to attend your resident school, say your resident school is American Canyon Middle School, Silverado, or Redwood, then you would contact the enrollment center. They would take your information and they would make that change or adjustment in our student information system and make that change for you. If you want to attend if you want to attend your non-resident school, say you live in the Silverado area and you want to attend Redwood, you would participate in the open enrollment application. You would have to apply through Schoolment and complete the application. And because we are all about options in USD, if you wanted to attend the newly forming middle school at Browns Valley, that will have 6th and 7th grade openings, or Shear, which currently has 6th grade and will have 6th and 7th as well, then you would complete the open enrollment application and apply, and you would be notified sometime in December if you got a spot in any of those places for open enrollment. So like I said, we're all about options here. Okay, and so next slide, please. I'm going to pass back to Principal Uribe. She's going to talk a little bit about school tours. Obviously, you guys are very familiar with the River campus, but it will provide a little bit more opportunity to meet Principal Uribe in person. So go ahead and share a little bit, Principal Uribe, around the school tours that are being offered.
Yes, so we do have a couple of opportunities coming up for our new families, and of course our River families too, to join in our tours. We have 2 different opportunities. We have Saturday, November 6th, and then we have Thursday, November 11th. Both dates will take place at 10 a.m. And again, you are invited to be part of this. I will present the same PowerPoint presentation to the new families, but for these families, most of them have not been on the campus. So this is why we're doing the tour. So again, you're welcome to join us, but we will be presenting the same presentation. But like Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings mentioned, it's a good opportunity to meet other families. We're seeing a lot of interest of our families coming to just experience the campus. So you're more than welcome to join us. I did talk to Principal Adams today as we're planning for the tours, and I asked her for some students that could help with the tours. So if we have any students on the call that want to support us with that, talk to your principal, because we will be planning for that next week in preparation for those 2 big days. So we're excited to launch the tours. We're excited about our school, and we're excited to have you join and continue this beautiful, again, opportunity that we have to continue to celebrate languages and cultures and expand it to a lot of different members from across our district. So with that, I think we are ready for our next slide, and just to thank you for your time and for engaging and participating in this PowerPoint, and also give you an opportunity to ask any questions. So we'll open up the mic, right?
Yeah, thank you, Principal Uribe. I do see a few hands, and the first one is Claire, and I think we talked to Claire yesterday. Claire, so Megan, I believe, is going to unmute you, and then you'll have to unmute your own. And hi, Claire, how can we answer your questions this evening?
I am back. So one of the things that my oldest daughter, who's currently at River, really enjoys about the school are the electives. She's doing culinary, art, and then there is music that starts towards next year. I haven't heard anything about electives so far with Unidos. What electives will be offered?
So Claire, I'll start that answering that question, and then see if Principal Uribe or Director Reddy has any answers. So there's 2 things that we're doing. One of their electives is, or their elective is Spanish. That's the elective that they have, and through the cultural arts integration is how they are getting exposed and experience other electives, sort of elective like experiences. I know that Principal Uribe and Director Reddy have spent a lot of time talking and discussing how to make sure that students have sort of the full experience at Unidos and have opportunities to sort of explore and develop things that they're interested in. And so I'm going to ask them if they want to speak a little bit to some of the thoughts that they've had around electives and what's going to be offered.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start off, and then if there's anything you want to add, feel free. So the cultural arts integration is a model that's developed to integrate multiple different mediums of art, whether it's performing arts or visual arts. And so Willow has had great success with integrating art into their curriculum and exposing students. And so this provides a wider opportunity for more diversity of their art experience in different mediums. And so we're looking to that model, and there's also, there's an arts integration community. And so we are starting that process of planning that with some experts around arts integration actually on Friday. With that, the late and early flight options are available. As a former high school principal, I know the importance of transitioning into those performing arts programs. And so we're looking at how we can support students through those opportunities who have that interest to transition into some of those high school programming and continue their experience with that, to offer those additionally, as well as through some of the extra courses after school, the programming that Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings was sharing about our after school programming.
Mm-hmm.
Great, that's very helpful. And then she also plays competitive soccer, my daughter, and wants to play basketball. And we moved up from Up Valley, so St. Helena, and there is a very kind of much more intensified sports network up here. And ACE doesn't quite seem to cut it when it comes to, like, they're not playing other schools and they're not really getting ready for high school sports through the ACE program. And so maybe this is more of a middle school in general question, but are the middle schools in Napa planning on bringing back more of a robust athletic program for sports and not using ACE forever?
Well, that I appreciate the feedback around what is currently being offered. The ACE program is run through Napa County Office of Education in conjunction with some after-school programming or after-school childcare. So I think it is something that's like worth exploring. We always have to consider the fiscal sustainability of anything that we start in terms of that. But that is, I've heard that feedback from other families around wanting something a little more robust in terms of our sports offering in middle school.
Okay. Yeah, that's more just feedback. Pickleball ain't going to get you in college.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe there'll be a pickleball like scholarship somewhere. You never know.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Thanks, ladies.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I think the next person is Dana. I don't know if it's two names, one name. Dana. Did I pronounce that correctly, Dana?
Yeah.
Oh, it's two. Okay. Hi, Dana. What can we help you with?
So I have a son in 6th grade in River, and I'm totally considered keeping him at River and learning Spanish. My only concern is he will be able to stay for 8th grade as well, or is only guaranteed for 7th grade?
No, they're guaranteed until the highest grade, until they leave middle school and go on to high school. Okay.
And one more question. What about brothers and sisters when time comes? Will Unidos will be an option for students that are coming from Northwood or from schools that are not speaking Spanish, or it's only giving to the students that are currently on River?
So we do have board policy around sibling priority when it comes to open enrollment, but the students have to be in the school at the same time. So if you have, like, let's say he's an 8th grader, he's going to 9th grade, and your students coming into 6th grade, that wouldn't be sibling priority. Like, that wouldn't qualify. But if he is a 7th grader and you have a 6th grader coming in, they would get sibling priority in terms of open enrollment.
Okay, but would it be an option for the students that are not coming from a Spanish-speaking school?
Absolutely. That's why we have the 3 pathways to support, actually really 2 pathways to support students who are starting in middle school with their sort of language, second language journey.
So that would be the program for the future as well, not just for the next 2 years.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good evening.
You too.
Next, I see Nicole Clancy. How can we help you, Nicole?
Hi, sorry, and you may have answered this already. I'm so sorry, I got home from work late, but so I did hear that the elective that it's just one elective and it's a Spanish elective. So is it a Spanish, like, is it a language arts class, or is it just an elective that's offered in Spanish? I guess I was a little confused because you were talking about performing arts, and so I was just confused as to, number one, what the elective was, and then you've probably already answered this, but are the classes for the River kids, are they going to be immersion classes, or I was just a little confused in making the decision whether or not, if my daughter's coming in to take, her math class, if that's going to be in English or Spanish or both, and how that works exactly. So I apologize if you've already answered this.
No worries. We can go back. Megan, can you go back a couple of slides to the one that has the day in the life of Unidos Middle School, and then I'll let Principal Uribe or Director Reddy talk about what your child might experience.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
thank you. Go ahead.
Go ahead. So as you can see here in the middle column, we have the day in the life of a student who's new to the Spanish language. So you can see that there's 6 periods. We have English language arts, we have math, also in English, we have social studies in English, science in English, and then we have our Spanish elective, where students will be learning Spanish in that one class, right? Okay. So that's what that's going to look like for a student who's new to the Spanish language. It will be, language arts based, but it will only be for that class for a student who's new to learning Spanish.
Can I add to that a little bit too? So we are currently working with the two-way immersion, who wrote much of the guidelines around immersion programs. And so with that, the program is built to be robust for both the DLI student and for the student new to language, so that starting in 6th grade, or for those students starting in 7th or 8th grade, that we're starting a language journey. And so that they have that opportunity to begin their language later than our dual immersion students, but at the level based off of assessing where they're coming in and then working through those levels over the years, so that they have that opportunity to get their seal of biliteracy by the time they leave high school, which does require meeting requirements in high school that show both proficiency in Spanish. So it's not guaranteed, but a student, either new or a current River student, would enter those courses at the level that they are at. And those would be separate from the Spanish language arts that the dual language immersion students are in. So they're level specific. I think secondarily to that, you asked about arts. And so there is some intentionality around integrating the arts with the core curriculum. And that would be taking those art standards and providing exposure to multiple different mediums and types of art, from performing art to visual art. We also recognize that students are transitioning into high school and need opportunities for programs that they may engage in, such as band or orchestra or choir, pieces like that. And so as we continue to design, that's why we have those early and late flight options, because when we run those options, they're really based on student interest and student need for those. And so you'll learn more about those separate courses or potentially after school programs. But currently our structure is such that all students will be exposed to multiple mediums and different forms of art, which is unique from the other middle schools.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for going back with that. That answers a lot of questions.
No problem. We want to make sure that we're clear and families and students understand. So thank you for helping us reiterate that.
Thank you, Nicole. Have a good evening.
You too.
Next up is Chelsea.
Hi, thank you. Forgive me, but this is still along those same lines of the last couple of questions. I know that you guys are still figuring out what those electives are going to be for early and late flight, but it doesn't sound like there's any currently planned instrumental music classes the way that band is at River now, or the way they had it in elementary school. And I know that you guys are still working out what those are based on student interest, but are you going to understand what that's going to look like before we have to make our open enrollment decisions this month? Or is that something that's going to be decided later next year?
So I think that your question around the elementary model versus the elective model is helpful in understanding this. And so when you look at, I'm just going to take 6th grade for an example. So when you look at 6th grade and you look at the core standards for a course in 6th grade, it's also layering the art standards. And so it may be engaging in and gaining a deeper understanding of their learning as applied through arts. And so
I'm familiar with that as well, because we were at El Salvador.
Oh, great.
So I understand that instrumental band or strings classes are an elective, but you're not sure if that's yet an opportunity that they're going to have. Is that correct?
I'll answer that. So the offering of those classes would be based on student interest. And currently, like when we think about what's offered at Harvest, because of their dual language immersion program, is that there is there's an opportunity for students to do band or choir. Actually, I'm not sure about the choir, but I know that they have band at Harvest. So that's why we have the early or late flight as an opportunity for students to take some kind of visual or performing arts.
And it's hard to say like which ones are offered after school, just because when you're building it, sometimes running a PE class late flight so that they can fit it within their school day, it makes more sense. And so that's why it's as students sign up for those course options to say, I'm interested in having that 7th period. And then we start to see where those interests are. Then it determines where they fall in that school day. So it's hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I guess then my question is, will we know that before we have to, like, not when it is versus early or late flight, but if it's even going to be offered before we have to make this decision of what middle school they're going to go to next year within this next month? Or is that something that, based on student interest, you guys figure out closer to the beginning of the school year?
It's something that typically comes up during the registration process as students register for courses in January or February. That's when it typically comes up at all middle schools in particular. So what happens is there's different courses on the course cards. And then based off of student interest, sometimes you can run that elective course at all of our middle schools, and sometimes you don't have the student numbers to do that. And so you're looking at it. So I think what we can commit to is that we're going to offer it, but at what, if there's more students interested in this versus this other one, that's a constant what we call master schedule building that happens in the early spring during the registration process.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Chelsea. We have, it's ASUMAN. I don't want to mispronounce her name, so. Hello. You can unmute your mic. I think you have.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Just a quick question. We were just curious if are all the current river teachers going to be gone? Is it a whole new group of teachers coming in for next year?
I wouldn't say necessarily that it's a whole new group of teachers. What typically happens when there's been school closures in the past, when we think about Mount George or Yountville, is the teachers follow the students. This is a little different in the sense that the school is being reprogrammed. And we will follow what is in our collective bargaining agreement with our teachers union. And so we'll follow the contract process with that. in terms of how teachers are assigned.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it looks like there are no more questions. So I think we're going to, oh, I think Claire, you had another question. Claire, how can we help you?
Can I just ask one more? If we
Sure.
decide to open enroll our student as a Unidos student, though my middle daughter who's coming from Northwood, and then after some of these questions have been answered, or we feel like it may not be the right choice, can then we go with our home school? Is that an option?
That's a really good question. So Claire, I'll have to like check with the enrollment center around the current practice or policy around that, because I'm not 100% sure what the policy is around that. So what you're asking, just so that I'm clear, is that if more design or more details come out around programming and you think it may not be the best fit for your child, can you then have a spot in your child's resident school? Is that what you're asking?
Correct.
Okay. And I will get back to you, Claire. Okay. I will find out and get back to you. Thank you, Claire. I see a couple more hands popped up. Yev Taylor.
Hi, I was just wondering if River students will be getting priority with open enrollment if they choose to open enroll at Sheer or Browns Valley.
It's part of board policy that if you are impacted by a school closure consolidation, that you get priority or get a priority in open enrollment. So yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Nicole.
Hi, sorry. Just going back to Claire's comment, I think it would be great if we all could get an answer to that. I think there's an all around, just a little nervousness about if the kids are going to fare well there. If we were to make that decision, or if it's going to be a not great experience for them. So if we could all get some sort of communication on what the answer to that would be, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you, Nicole. We'll
great.
We'll add it to our information that we send out. And
Perfect.
so just so that you know, like we are, I know I heard Principal Uribe mention it, but I mean, even in the name of the school, Unidos, we are committed to bringing together school communities into one that are all focused on, exploring their own second language development and doing it through cultural arts integration. So there is that commitment, and if current 6th and 7th grade Rivers families or students stay, they will make up a pretty large chunk of the school as well. So that river spirit will still be there.
All right, okay. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
You. Mm-hmm.
And next I see Wendy. Oh, you muted yourself again. Go ahead. You'll have to unmute, Wendy. We can't hear you. There you go.
So sorry.
That's okay.
I've gotten quite a few questions about school bus, and you indicated that it may not apply to River families, and so I just wanted to get some clarification on that. We do have a pretty significant number of families that do live in the Harvest area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we will be continuing. Like I said, families are being surveyed around their transportation needs, and then we'll be able to come out with something more definitive around that. I do know that if typically in past, if families open enroll to a school and are currently typically for open enrollment, if you elect a school that's outside your resident school, then we don't typically provide transportation. I know the circumstance is a little different. So I know that that's been a question that's come up a couple of times, and we will get a more definitive answer for you. But we'll know more once we know what the actual transportation needs are.
And so you will be surveying the River families as well?
I believe it's part of the script I saw for families. So I will double check on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Melanie. Melanie? Okay, there you go. You just need to unmute.
Okay, sorry, I just got the.
Oh, no worries. How can we help you?
This might be a silly question as a high school teacher, but if my sixth grader takes Spanish in 7th and 8th grade, will they be able to enter high school at a Spanish 2 or Spanish 3 level, depending on how they perform?
I'm going to let Director Reddy answer that because I know that we've had quite a few conversations around that. So go ahead, Director Reddy.
Hi, Melanie. That's not a silly question at all. And so, yes, there is some articulation to the high schools with regard to language that we are going to be working on with our Spanish departments at both the middle school and the high school as we develop this. Having had a similar 3-year Spanish program feed into high school, having that clear articulation and pathway, especially so that students are placed appropriately when they get into high school. So traditionally, a student who finishes 3 years in a middle school, most definitely based off of their acquisition of the language, would be in a Spanish 2 or Spanish 3 course. But again, as we develop this, we're going to look at that with our teachers to develop that articulation and make sure we have those clear pathways for students. So they're continuing to acquire that language at the appropriate level. I think with that too, additionally, having assessments in place so that we know where students should be appropriately placed so that they can be the most successful in that language class. But yes, you're right on target with thinking that they would move in with some high school credit in Spanish to the high school and move into a higher level.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Melanie. I think that's all of the hands, and I don't see any more hands. And I just really want to, first of all, thank you all for joining tonight. I want to thank our lovely webinar host, Megan, and as well as Principal Uribe and Director Reddy for presenting tonight. And most of all, I'd like to thank Claudia, our interpreter, who has hung out with us and making sure that our Spanish-speaking families are able to access this information as well. So with that, we are going to end our programming for tonight. If you do have additional questions, I believe you can read, there is a web or an email address, Director Reddy, that people can reach out to.
Yeah, so what I'll do, I'm going to send this video out to families at the end of this week and with more information about how you can continue to access information and also the tour information, just in case, you know, I know you're familiar with the campus, but getting to know your principal and getting to know some of the students from the different schools who are leading the tours may be something you're interested in doing. So that information will get sent out to you by the end of the week.
Yes. And then you can always, if you have other questions, reach out to communications@nvusd.org. So with that, we are going to close out. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you.